the CEO of Spectranet, Mr. David Venn. You're welcome. Mr. Venn has over 30 years of experience leading highly competitive businesses in the telecommunications industry and has developed and grown businesses in the US, Hong Kong, Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Zambia, Ghana, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. In addition to senior positions at Cable and Wireless Optimus Communication, Mr. Venn has held senior executive officer positions with top telecom brands which include Vodafone, Celtel, also known as Zain, London Interconnect, and International Wireless Corporation. Mr. Venn has an MBA from Ashridge Management College, the UK, and a bachelor's degree in telecommunications engineering, and has attended numerous leadership programs at London Business School. Mr. Venn is the CEO of Spectranet Limited, the leading LG Ltd operator in Nigeria. Put your hands together and welcome with me Mr. David Venn as he takes us in the paper how 4G is really different from 3G and what new applications can it bring forth. Put your hands together. You're welcome, sir.
Is there a presentation coming up? Yeah. Okay, good morning everybody, ladies and gentlemen. As we attend this conference, I think no one here can overemphasize the impact that the internet is having on the whole of human society. And most of that has happened in the last 10 to 15 years. In fact, probably most of the important stuff has happened in the last 5 to 10 years. And I believe that access to the internet has and will continue to have a huge impact on life for everybody. Perhaps more so than the introduction of mobile phones. And today, mobile phones are considered more of an access mechanism to the internet as opposed to an end in itself. The internet breaks down barriers, it provides access to information, and like nothing else has done before. And it's a platform, as the NCC gentleman said earlier, that you can use for communications, to improve your social life or connect, and also to express your ideas. I think probably everyone in this room today has probably got a 3G phone on them, and they're using it. Not right now, but they've got it in their pocket. It used to be 2G, now everyone's got 3G. I predict that within probably less than 3 years, everyone in this room is going to have a 4G phone, because that's what you're going to have. You wouldn't have a 2G phone today, would you? Your phone is 3G, and in 3 years' time, it's going to be 4G. So the subject today is what's the difference really between 3G and 4G, and why should we be interested in it? First of all, on the sort of technology roadmap, you had 2G, you had 3G, you had lots of other technologies. And what this graph shows is that these are all coming together, they're all converging onto one technology, which is 4G LTE. And that's the technology that's going to evolve ahead of time as well. So it's called long-term evolution, LTE, and it's designed to evolve over time and get better and better. It's put together by the same people that did 3G, so it's the 3GPP standards people. But I think it's important to see where it's coming from, and it's actually born out of the 2G, the 3G technologies. Each of these technologies, you'll see, lasted about 10 years. 2G was around for about 10 years, 3G came in, a bit of an overlap, another 10 years, and now it's 4G. And that seems to be the cycle. Who knows whether 5G is going to be here in 10 years, or whether 4G is just going to keep evolving as a bigger and better 4G. On to the next slide, please. When you look at 3G, I remember when 3G was launched. I was around at the time, and it was early days of mobile phones, but it was about 2001. It was a leap ahead from where we were with 2G. 3G it sold all sorts of promises of you were going to have e-medicine, you were going to have telecommuting, all these things were going to come with 3G. A lot of them didn't actually. You got data, you got email, and you got Facebook and stuff, but you don't see everyone working from home. You don't have operations being done remotely via 3G. There are a few actually, but it's not commonplace. The interesting thing about 3G compared to 4G is when operators got the licenses for 3G, they saw it mainly as a huge increase in voice capacity. They were running out of space in the old 2G networks. They were congested. And by getting 3G, you get extra spectrum and you get extra voice capability. And you can do a bit of data as well. And that was the big benefit for operators at the time. And also with 3G, it's much more spectrally efficient. What that means is if you're given a bandwidth by the regulator, if you're an operator, you can get a lot more voice phone calls down a 3G service than you can a 2G. So you can get more customers on for the same frequency allocation. And that was very important for operators, and it still is. But one of the big differences between 3G and 4G is 3G, as an operator, you have to configure it for voice and separately for data. So you have to choose how much of your capacity is going to be allocated to voice and how much is used for data. And when people try to use data on 3G, you're accessing the data part of 3G. Now, the reason why that's important is that all the big mobile phone operators make a huge amount of money out of voice telephone calls, because that's their business. So they want to make sure that as far as possible, that voice network is not congested. So you can imagine how that decision comes in terms of allocating data to voice. They want to make sure there's enough, or as much as they can put, capacity for voice. So just to give you an idea, you can get 10 times more data down a 3G circuit, if you like, or bandwidth, than you could with 2G. And 4G, it's a leap ahead again. The other thing about 3G is it was implemented basically in 2 bands worldwide. It was either 1900 megahertz or 2100 megahertz. And all the 3G operations around the world are in those bands. There's a couple of minor ones which aren't, but almost all of them are in those bands. And that was done purposely so that all the equipment was compatible. So manufacturers could produce hundreds of millions of handsets, and they would be as cheap as possible. And that's very different with 4G. It was first deployed in 2001, which means that it's about 15 years old now. It actually took about 15 years to develop it as well. So actually 3G started in the development labs about 30 years ago. But 15 years ago when it launched, around about 2000, 2001, if you had a computer then, you would be pretty smart if you had a Pentium 2. Okay, that's what they had in 2001. We've come a long way with computers. We've come a long way with technology as well. So the 4G networks that you see going in now are the very latest technology, state of the art. So there's been huge advancements, and some of those advancements have been put into 3G as well, but the underlying concept of 3G is 15 years old at least. That's when it was launched. It's mostly used to carry voice. If you look at the networks in Nigeria, most of the 3G networks are mostly carrying voice, and there's data on there as well. And so to some extent, the data capacity competes with the voice capacity. So as a user, you might get varying levels of service on data. Sometimes it works very well, sometimes it doesn't work so well. That's because a lot of the capacity is being used for voice telecoms. If you look at 4G, which is the next slide, first of all, just the underlying differences technology-wise between 4G and 3G. First of all, as I said, it's called long-term evolution. The idea of 4G LTE is it's going to evolve over time. And in fact, it's all designed for data. There actually is no voice in 4G LTE. Voice is like an add-on, which has only recently come out actually. It's called Voice over LTE. Hasn't been deployed very much at all yet anywhere. 4G is mainly about data. It's low latency, which means you get low delays, which is good for real-time applications. And it's designed to evolve. The standard says that the aim is to be able to have 100 megabits per second on your handset when moving, and when you're static, when you're still, you should be able to get 1 gigabit per second eventually. Okay, this is the vision, if you like. When they wrote the standard, they also envisioned that everyone's going to be travelling around the world in high-speed trains at 350 kilometres per hour. So the standard actually says that 100 megabits per second on the move in a high-speed train at 350 kilometres per hour. That's the target. So that's what they're trying to achieve with 4G over time. Don't try doing it today. It's not going to work today at that speed, but that's what they're aiming for. Now, in terms of spectral efficiency is about 27 times more than 2G. So you can get a lot more data down the same bandwidth. So for operators, you can squeeze more data down, you can have more customers. So it's more spectrally efficient, which means for the same amount of equipment and bandwidth, you can actually sell more. So you can make more revenue, so it's good for the business model. The cost, what that means to the customer is the cost per gigabyte is less, or it can be, if that's the way the operator wants to charge it. The other thing that's very different about 4G is that it's designed to work in almost every band. It's not just 1900 or 2.1 gigs. There's 7 or 8 different bands it can work in. And the idea is the world is changing, spectrum's getting congested, there's only small pockets of frequencies available for regulators to auction out or to farm out. And so this technology needs to work in all the bands. And a lot of the technology that's being produced, including the modems and the handsets, work in 5 or 6 or 7 different bands. So whichever one you want to use, you switch to that band, or the operator does, and it works automatically. So the idea is it can work in multiple bands, but also it can work in multiple bands at the same time. So in Nigeria, for instance, if you had a 4G network at 2.3 gigahertz, which is where Spectranet is, and you also had one that was at maybe 1900 megahertz, your modem could switch between the two depending on which had the stronger signal. That's the whole idea of 4G. The other thing to do with frequencies as well is the channel size. If you're a network operator, you're allocated spectrum and you're given a certain block of spectrum. 4G works in lots of different sizes of blocks, you can configure it, whereas 2G and 3G is very limited. So again, if you've got some spare spectrum flying around, you can probably launch an LTE, a 4G LTE service in that band. So it opens up all sorts of opportunities for new operators and for operators to take a bit of spectrum and introduce a high-speed data service. Mr. Ifram earlier from NCC, when he was saying about it challenges business models, it really does. The existing operators get almost all of their revenue from voice telephone calls in Nigeria. I predict that in 3 years' time, no one's going to be paying for voice telephone calls in Nigeria. It'll all be free. And won't that be nice? Yeah? But you'll be paying for data. You'll be buying bundles. And in a lot of other markets, that's already there. I'm from the UK. In the UK, I've got a family bundle. I don't live there. I live here. But my family bundle is I have 5 SIM cards from my operator. I have, it's all on one bundle. I get 10 gigs of data a month, which we can share between all 5 however we want. It just gets consumed from the same bundle. All calls, phone calls, and SMSs are free, unlimited. And that's a standard package. That's a family package from Orange in the UK, or EE it's called. That's quite normal. So you don't pay for voice. Imagine how that's going to change the business models here, where they're charging you per second for every single voice call. If you look at the differences between 4G and 3G and try to see, what's important in the differences, it really depends on your perspective. If you're a network operator, you may see it differently to if you're a customer, or if you're a regulator, or if you're maybe a new investor. So if you look at, first of all, network operators, which all of them at the moment are carrying 3G customers. They want more room for voice. So if you can get 4G, first thing you can do is you can offload all your data, get it onto the 4G network. That will free up voice capacity on 3G, and so decongest areas that are congested in the network. That's one huge advantage for a mobile operator, because, as I say, most of their revenue and their profit comes from voice phone calls. You'll see a lot of the operators now starting to get into new areas like entertainment, music, video, that sort of thing. There's going to be a lot more of that, offering broadband. These are new revenue streams for the mobile operators if they can get hold of 4G. The other thing as well that's quite interesting is they've already got, the mobile operators, a large network of towers all around the country. When you had 2G, they used to connect those towers with a 2 megabit circuit using a microwave radio. When it became 3G, they had to have a bigger circuit connecting to it because it had more capacity, you had more voice calls, and you also had a bit of data as well. So typically it was about 10 megabits you put on there. With a 4G tower, you need to have 100 megabits because that's the capacity of a 4G base station. So what that means is you can't really use microwave radio. You have to have metro fiber networks if you're going to launch 4G. And you'll see a number of the operators that are now building or trying to build fiber networks in the cities. And it's to support the future data requirements because you cannot have a 4G network without fiber because there's just too much capacity to put onto microwave. And as I said, moving towards data bundles. All the operators are going to have to start moving towards data bundles because the new operators will be offering that and voice will be free. So it's a real game changer. If you don't think that's going to happen, imagine, well, just think back, just a few years back, operators used to charge quite a bit for SMS, for text. And then what happened? WhatsApp. WhatsApp turned up. Within 2 years, worldwide, not just here, but worldwide, SMS revenues disappeared. Everyone's using WhatsApp. It's free. It's not really free. You're using your data, but it's virtually free. And the operators who were previously charging a lot of money for a text, which actually didn't cost them anything to handle, lost all that revenue. And that all happened in a very short period of time, just about 2 years. It suddenly decimated their data revenues. If you're a regulator or a government and you're looking at 4G, what does it mean to you? First of all, it can certainly help deliver the National Broadband Plan, which I heard mentioned this morning as well. It certainly rolls out broadband data and availability to lots of people all over the country. It allows you to auction off spectrum that previously perhaps wasn't so attractive, and people can then launch 4G onto there. You can also refarm previous spectrum. So there's a number of pockets of spectrum that are sitting with operators at the moment in Nigeria that are not being used. The company's gone quiet or whatever's happened to it, but the spectrum's not being used. If somehow that could come back and be reallocated, then that'll all be used for 4G. I think certainly in this market and almost any market now in the world, if an operator gets allocated spectrum, you're going to put 4G on it. You're not going to put anything else on it. It's going to be 4G. You could also use the introduction of 4G to introduce some new competition. Currently, the mobile phone companies, there's a handful, or 4 in this country, very dominant, large mobile phone companies that dominate the whole space. There's no room really for a new operator to come in to compete with them because they're so big and they're so well established. If you give all the 4G spectrum to those same 4, then nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same 4, taking forward for the next 15 years or whatever it might be. So nothing changes. So there is an opportunity to introduce new competition, and taking it to the extreme. Can you imagine if I won't say Nigeria, but if a country allocated all the 4G spectrum to new operators, not the existing ones? Can you imagine the way that would restructure the whole industry and shake it up? There's a thought there for the regulator to think about. But lastly, from the regulatory perspective, 4G is going to bring a much better quality. The data, because it's designed for data and it's all IP, it's very solid as a network. 3G, data is an add-on, and that's why it's so variable in its quality. Whereas with 4G, it's all data, there's no voice on there. It's designed for data, it's IP, which means it keeps, it resends and all that sort of thing automatically if packets are lost and stuff. It's very solid and very rigid. So what it brings is, for the end user, you get broadband everywhere, and it's very solid and reliable, which opens up all sorts of new applications. Because if you can rely on it, then you can do all sorts of new things. And then lastly, for investors, if you're a new investor or an investor that wants to come into a country, into telecommunications market, there's definitely an opportunity for new entrants to come in, get some spectrum, launch a 4G network, and change the game. You can come in with disruptive strategies. The main advantage, I think, being that you haven't got a legacy of a voice network that you're trying to protect. And that's what the current guys will be doing. They'll be trying to protect their voice revenue. At the moment, the revenue that a mobile operator gets from voice is about 5 or 6 times more than he gets from data with the same amount of bandwidth. Okay, because he makes a lot more money out of voice. Can you imagine if that voice revenue disappeared because no one's paying for voice? It changes the whole game completely. So there'll be a lot of moves to try and protect that revenue and stop free voice coming in. There's also, as I mentioned, a number of old assets around. There's companies lying around that have got spectrum. Again, for new investors coming in, there's opportunities there to buy up and to maybe breathe some new life into what was an old company. And then last but not least, customers. What does it mean to customers? Assuming 4G is available everywhere, what does it mean? You get fast broadband everywhere, and you're always connected. You get significantly lower data costs per gigabyte, and we're already seeing that now with the 4G operators that are there now. The cost per gigabyte per month is much cheaper than it would be on 3G because the technology is built for it and it's got a lot more capacity for the same bandwidth. It's much more reliable, so you can rely on it, and it's much more solid as a data platform, and as I mentioned about voice. But it's not just about data. If you've got a good data port, you can use FaceTime for voice and video. You can use Skype. There'll be loads of other apps that are coming out as well. There's a few other ones that I use. You don't have to use voice connectivity on your other SIM card if you've got 2 SIMs in your phone. There's loads of other ways to make voice phone calls with video as well. When I communicate with my family, I've got an iPhone and I use FaceTime. I see my daughter in England. She's at university in England. And it's full video. The voice quality is superb on FaceTime. And that's just using my data bundle. It doesn't use very much of the bundle, only a small amount. But compare that to a voice call made via a 3G or GSM network. I can hardly hear what she's saying. It's muffled, it's not very clear. Whereas FaceTime or Skype is just crystal clear, and it's so much better. And it's free. So why would you pay? So in terms of new applications, what you're going to see, this is the last slide, is a lot more video and high definition video, user generated. Everyone's got smartphones and everyone's got a high definition camera on those smartphones. When you take a video or a picture with that camera and you blow it up on your computer, it is really high definition. It's a really good camera in those phones. So you can see a lot more video and loads of apps. In Nigeria, there's already 90 million internet users. There's 50 million Facebook users in Nigeria. So that's a third of the population already on Facebook. And a lot of those social networks are moving much more towards video. What I noticed when I first came here a year ago was that if you send someone an email with a video attachment, or if there's an advert which has a video attachment, most people in Nigeria close it straight away because they don't want to consume their data bundle. And I can understand that, because the last thing they want is a video downloading. On 4G, before you've got your finger on the button to close it, it's downloaded, it's already there. So you've already used it because it's so fast. But you won't have the same cost concerns with 4G, because it will be normal. At Spectranet, our average customer, and over 80% of customers are on the same package, have 20 gigs a month. That's the standard. 80% of our customers do 20 gigs a month. And we have quite a few customers that do 50 or 70 gigs as well, as a standard sort of package. So for that, it's obviously video and there's entertainment content. You can do a lot more video streaming. I think one of the biggest risks or threats to the satellite TV business is broadband. And every Nigerian knows how to get movies on the internet and where to go to get them, and perhaps not pay for them or whatever. And once that becomes widespread with broadband availability, you're going to see people not paying for expensive satellite TV subscriptions. So that's I think one of the biggest threats. In a lot of markets I've seen in Europe and America, the satellite TV providers normally get together or buy up broadband operators so they can offer broadband as well, because they can see that the two things go together, and they might as well, be winning on at least one of them. Very last, I think there's quite a lot of discussion in Nigeria about cloud-based services. It's still a bit new here. The main reason why it hasn't taken off so quickly here yet is that people don't have access to a good, reliable data network. If you have access and it's available all the time, everywhere you are, and it's broadband and it's fast, then the cloud is definitely the place to have all the new applications and to store everything. You can't do it if you're using 3G because it's just it's not there, and you can't rely on it and the speed and the cost. But once you have a ubiquitous broadband data network available to you everywhere you go, then cloud-based services are really the thing to do. Just to finish off, I've got a very short video. It's 45 seconds. That was supposed to show, the modern family using broadband. Everyone uses it differently. The children use it very differently to the mother, to the father. It's teleworking, working from home, it's entertainment, it's everything all in one. And that's what comes with broadband, and that's what 4G is going to deliver. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow. You can have your seat, sir. We'll be taking some questions. Anywhere there. Awesome. I need 4G like yesterday. My kids are whiz kids. We have super babies now who know how to use the internet from the age of 2. From the womb. Thank you. They are chopping data from the womb. So with this is the future. This is the now. This is what we need. Put your hands together one more time for the CEO, Spectranet Limited, Mr. David Venn. I'd also like to welcome back to the high table the NCC team, representing the chairman of the day, Mr. Ephraim Nwokoneya. Put your hands together for him as well. We'll be taking some questions now. I'd also like to welcome back Mr. Anthony Ikemefuna, Head Fixed Network Coverage Services, Technical Standards, and Network Integrity. If you're still here, please join us on the high table. And lastly but not the least, Mr. Okbarinde Adetoye, a manager with the NCC, still part of the NCC team. Celebrate him as he comes. I believe he's here with us. I'd also like to recognize and acknowledge the presence of the DG of NIDDA, Mr. Peter Olu Jack, the director of NIDDA. He'll be giving us a remark shortly. I believe he's somewhere around. He'll be walking into the building anytime soon to give us his remark. The DG, the director of NIDDA, National Information Technology Development. We move on to our question and answer session because I'm sure you have questions. I have questions. So I'll be coming down. Any questions for the NCC team or 3G or 4G? You already know which I would pick. So let's have your questions. Let's see your hands if you have any questions, any clarifications, any contributions. Okay. We'll take 3 questions. Your name, sir.
Morning, everybody. Incidentally, my name is David as well. Triple D Communications. Okay, I've got a question for the 4G LTE. Um, if the 4G was actually designed for data, okay, does it mean that in the near future there's not going to be any space or add-on for voice? Thank you very much.
I need an extra mic.
Thank you. No, I mean, everyone's going to be making voice phone calls, but what's going to happen is, over time, 4G will be introduced, and then 3G and 2G will be migrated to 4G over time. But all the voice will go via the data bundle. So it's using new codecs, new technology. The latest is voice over LTE, which is the latest one, which only a few operators have implemented around the world. And that provides a much better voice quality than GSM. It's got better codecs, well, 30-year younger codecs. But the point is, the connection to your handset is an IP data stream, and the voice will be injected into that. Whereas at the moment with 3G, you've got circuit switched voice, so it's basically like an old phone call going through channels and radio channels. So it's not part of the main data stream. So with 4G, you'll have one data pipe going to your handset or your device, and you can use that for anything, whether it's video, voice, or whatever. And the handset will do it all for you. So you will still have voice, but it will go over the 4G network.
Any other questions? No other questions for such an interesting paper? Okay. Is there anybody there? Okay. Interesting. I like this.
Thank you very much. I must add my voice in thanking Dave for such a wonderful presentation. He has painted a very robust picture with respect to the introduction of 4G technology. As a regulator, I'm interested so much in what 4G will bring to the table in the industry. Issue of delivering national broadband plan, issue of refarming old unused spectrum, issue of increased competition, choices for the consumer. But then my question is, in spite of all these opportunities, from operators' perspective, what do you see as the regulatory challenge? I'm interested, what challenge will 4G bring to me as a regulator from operators' perspective? Thank you.
Okay, I think there's a number of challenges. First of all the business models that exist today are going to be disrupted. And that will cause a lot of, how can I say, tension in the industry. I think the regulator has the opportunity today to try to sort of map out and design the new structure for the telecommunications industry for the next 20 years. And that really comes down to who gets the spectrum and gets the opportunity to launch 4G services. Because once those licenses are issued, then it's done. And that more or less will determine the shape of the industry going forward. And I think that's quite a challenge. You've got to work out, who should get it and if anyone, it will be allowed to be dominant. Obviously, there's all sorts of issues in terms of people's ability to roll out as well and access to resources. So that's the first one. I think on the compliance side, monitoring quality is very different for data and 4G to voice. With voice, we've more or less got a handle on that now in terms of drop calls, how many call successes happen, how many times does it take to make a phone call before we get ringing tone. You can measure all those things, and we all know how that works. With data, it's actually not so obvious. In fact, in a lot of cases, you don't even know if your data connection has disappeared until you go to use it, and then you find it's not there. So with 4G, it should be a lot more robust, but I think it will bring in a whole load of new measures that may be required, and performance measures to make sure everyone stays in check and provides a good quality service. So I think the biggest challenge is to the business model. and the pressure that everyone's going to come under from the big operators that have got a lot to lose by the game changing. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. I have one question for the regulator, if I can do that in front of the audience, please, which was whether there's any news on any spectrum auctions or allocations or any new spectrum coming out. You read the newspapers about people trying to grab 700 megahertz. You read about 2.6 gigahertz being auctioned, then being cancelled. Is there any news?
Okay, thank you, Dave. I think he's trying to get back at me. Right. I think there is a lot of good news for the industry and industry players. We're all aware that there has been a recent change in the management of NCC. It comes with it a lot of opportunities. We're looking at quite a good number of spectrum because it's needed for us to, reinvigorate the industry. So I'm quite sure by early next year, we'll come out with positive pronouncement in that respect. So for sure, there are some new spectrums that will be auctioned, but not this year, by next year, by God's grace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Very interesting discussion there, and I like the question and answer session as well. We'll move on in the program for today. We're still awaiting the presence. Oh, you have a question.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Spectranet, wonderful presentation, by the way. You didn't tell us how affordable your services were. I had your service before in Sunnyvale. I have a property there, but I no longer use you.
Okay.
I'd like to know how affordable, but that was why I stopped. I'm now in another estate, and I'd like to know if I can come on board again.
Okay, I didn't want this to be an advert, but there is a stand outside, straight out opposite. There's a Spectranet stand where people can demonstrate to you and show you. But I think I mentioned in my talk that most of our customers are on the same package, and that package is unlimited speed, so whatever the network can deliver, and they take 20 gigabytes a month. That's the most popular package. 80% of our customers are on that. In Abuja, that is 8,500 naira per month. In Lagos, it's actually cheaper, and the reason is the national connectivity within Nigeria is extremely expensive. But we're working on that ourselves as well with fiber networks. But that's the sort of price, and that's probably about half of what you would pay on GSM on 3G, and it works, and it's very fast.
Okay. We still have more questions. We'll take the gentleman in black. Your name, sir? It's on.
All right. Good morning. My name is Bejide Tosin. I work for Vico Nigeria. Please, my question goes to the NCC representative, that is the service regulator. Please, the question is about the short codes. As an entrepreneur, I really want to know the procedure for the short code, and to my understanding a bit, I have a colleague of mine that worked with the organization a couple of years ago, and as at then, he told me that short code registration and allocation was free then, but today, I think it's a different ballgame. So I really want to direct my question to you, like, what has really made it a different ballgame? And what is the procedure to acquire that today? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. The procedure for allocation of short codes. Before this time, short codes were being obtained from mobile network operators, whom we've given some bundle of numbers, and they were selling and allocating short codes from their number ranges to smaller operators like you at very high price. Sometime in 2011, the Commission came up with a guideline on short codes operation in Nigeria. If you go to our website, you'll see that guideline, 2011. In that guideline, it is clearly mentioned that short codes will be allocated by NCC and not operators, and it will be given to you for free. So you are right in saying that short codes from the Commission is for free. However, for you to get a short code, you must be a licensee of the Commission. So Dictum and Harry will not just come in to grab short codes. You must have authorization. And that authorization is for instance, value-added service. So one, you get registered as a VAS provider, maybe content provider, and then you apply for short code. Because if we give you an authorization for as a VAS provider, you need a short code to be able to deliver service, with the networks. And therefore, we owe it to you to give you the short codes for free. So the procedure is one, get your license as a service provider, then apply for short codes, and it will be given to you for free. And you can get it within 2-3 months. Thank you.
A round of applause for him. Thank you so much. We still have a question there. Your name, sir?
Good morning. My name is Ugu Emeka from Contranet Telecoms Limited. My question is to the MD of Spectranet. So as a business concern, I'm wondering if you have, if you've thought of perhaps partnering with one of the operators right now, like MTN Glo, with regards to the 4G, so that you can actually share assets with them and be their partner in that. As a business concern, how does it concern you? And secondly, what really you think are the challenges you are having doing business in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it wouldn't be giving away any secrets to say that a number of the operators have approached us, and they're in sort of two categories, I would say. One category is, I won't name any names, but they're fairly big, and they've got a lot of money, or not so much now, as maybe. Anyway, there's that category who they're basically looking to gobble up whatever they can. Whether they can grab spectrum, whether they can grab licenses or pick up other operators, and they're already looking at other operators. Then there's the other category who are looking to partner with us. They see a 4G network that's pretty solid and it's working, it's got hundreds of thousands of customers, and it's, people are happy. And they're looking to see how they can partner and work with us on that and have access to it. And that's quite an interesting model, I think, working together in partnership with some of the other operators. And I think that will start to happen very quickly. In terms of the challenges, there's obviously, like any business, access to funding, capital, exchange rates, all these things, are headaches. All of the network equipment we have to buy is priced in dollars. It comes from overseas. Nothing's made here for 4G. So we have dollar debt, obviously, because of that. So that's a challenge. I think the main thing in terms of rolling out across the country is the very high cost of national connectivity. It's okay in Lagos, where all the submarine cables come in, but if you want to provide service in Kano or Kaduna or something like that, we have to either lay our own fibre, and we don't have the scale to do that at the moment nationwide. We can do it in cities, but not nationwide. Or we have to rent capacity from others, and that rental cost is horrendous. It's just unbelievable. Spectranet has service in Ibadan, not very far from Lagos, 2-hour drive. We rent circuits from Lagos to Ibadan to connect our network in Ibadan to Lagos. The rental cost per megabit for those circuits is more than we pay to London from Lagos. So that means that for us, delivering the internet in Ibadan is twice or more than twice the price of delivering it in Lagos as our raw cost of internet access. And that's just Ibadan. That's not very far away. I can drive there. But you try somewhere like Kano, or even we're launching in Port Harcourt very soon. The circuit costs are very expensive. So that does two things. One is it inhibits growth, and we are trying very hard to get to lots of other cities, and we're going to be rolling out to many new cities in the first quarter of 2016. But also the price we charge our customers for the service has to cover our costs. We're not here to make a loss. We want to invest in more and more network and grow. That's the model. I know the NCC has been working on that. They've looked into it. They've done some studies on the cost of national connectivity. And that's the biggest issue, I think, that faces us, in addition to the usual funding and exchange rate stuff.